Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today's video breaks down one of the most unbelievable battlefield moments of the entire war. A moment that shows how preparation, timing, and pure strategy can flip the balance in an instant. Ukraine executed a trap so precise, so unexpected, and so devastating that Russian forces walked directly into it without even realizing what was coming. The blizzard, the terrain, the timing, and the movements all came together perfectly, turning what Russia believed was a routine convoy advance into a complete disaster. This was not an accident. This was not luck. This was a calculated move designed to cripple an entire armored line, and when the snowstorm hit, Ukraine unleashed a coordinated attack that destroyed the convoy and left Russian officers stunned at how they had been lured into the perfect trap. In the hours leading up to the incident, satellite monitoring, drone surveillance, and intercepted communications gave Ukrainian forces a clear picture of a Russian buildup moving toward a strategic corridor. The weather forecast predicted a heavy blizzard sweeping directly across the route Russia had chosen. Ukrainian planners knew this wasn't just a weather event. It was an opportunity. Snow reduces visibility for drivers. It blocks drones, muffles sound, and slows movement. It can paralyze machinery and leave troops disoriented. Ukraine understood that the blizzard was a weapon of its own, and they decided to use it to their advantage. Instead of preparing solely for defense, they prepared a trap that relied on Russia believing everything was normal. Russian forces were confident as they advanced, expecting limited Ukrainian resistance in that sector. Their convoy consisted of transport trucks, armored personnel carriers, tanks, and supply vehicles stretched out across a long column. The snow began lightly at first, but as the convoy moved deeper into the route, the storm transformed into a near whiteout. Visibility dropped to only a few meters, drivers slowed down, commanders lost visual contact, and the natural coordination of the convoy collapsed. Vehicles bunched together in tight clusters, the exact configuration Ukraine wanted. This created a situation where any strike would cause chain reactions, blocking escape routes and trapping hundreds of troops. What Russia believed was simply bad weather was actually the beginning of Ukraine's plan. Ukrainian units had already positioned themselves days earlier, hiding artillery systems, missile teams, and drone operators in sheltered positions. Even in harsh winter conditions, Ukrainian drone specialists adapted by using rugged FPV drones with thermal cameras that cut through snow interference. These drones didn't need clear skies. They just needed heat signatures, and a long convoy full of engines running hot provided a perfect trail to follow. The timing was everything. Ukraine waited until the convoy was deep enough into the storm that reversing or rerouting wasn't possible. Russian troops were stuck in place, blind and exposed. When Ukraine launched the first barrage, the blizzard masked the origin of the strikes. Russian commanders couldn't tell where the shells were coming from, couldn't see incoming drones, and couldn't coordinate countermeasures. Explosions erupted in the middle of the convoy, destroying fuel trucks and igniting fires that burned uncontrollably in the freezing wind. The smoke mixed with the snow created an even thicker fog around the vehicles. Tanks couldn't maneuver because the road had become blocked with burning wrecks. Artillery systems at the rear couldn't fire effectively because visibility was nearly zero. Russia's advantage in machinery meant nothing inside the storm. Ukrainian strike teams then deployed FPV drones in waves. The operators used thermal feeds to identify targets hidden in the snow. One drone after another slammed into parked tanks, armored carriers, and command vehicles. Ukrainian infantry teams moved closer from concealed forest lines, using the blizzard as natural cover. Russian forces were unable to see movement even a few meters away. They fired blindly, wasting ammunition and hitting nothing but snowbanks and empty terrain. The Ukrainians, meanwhile, advanced calmly and systematically, picking targets with precision and falling back into cover before Russia could react. The convoy's communication systems broke down completely. Radios crackled with static, and many units simply lost contact as antennas iced over and equipment malfunctioned in the cold. Russian officers tried to reorganize their troops, but the storm swallowed their commands. Even orders shouted at close range disappeared under the roar of heavy wind. Some soldiers attempted to abandon vehicles and take shelter, but the blizzard disoriented them. Without visual markers, they wandered directly into Ukrainian ambush zones. Explosions continued for more than an hour as Ukraine maintained pressure, but avoided overextending their units. The key to this operation wasn't just firepower, it was control. Ukraine didn't need to destroy everything immediately. They needed to create confusion and trap the rest of the column. Once the front and center of the convoy were destroyed, the back section was immobilized. Those soldiers had no line of sight to understand what was happening ahead. They couldn't advance, couldn't retreat, and couldn't communicate. They were trapped in a frozen corridor with no tactical options. As the blizzard intensified, Ukrainian Special Forces teams executed the next phase, isolating small pockets of Russian troops. Using silenced weapons, grenades, and close quarter tactics, they dismantled scattered groups trying to regroup. Russian morale collapsed because they never saw where the attackers were coming from. The combination of freezing temperatures, heavy wind, and zero visibility created an overwhelming psychological effect. Troops felt surrounded even when they weren't, because every sound was amplified, every shadow distorted, and every movement uncertain. Meanwhile, a secondary Ukrainian artillery group struck the tail of the convoy, ensuring that no reinforcements or retreating vehicles could escape. This sealed the trap completely. Ukraine effectively turned the snowstorm itself into a barrier, using the environment as a force multiplier. By the time the storm began to clear, the scale of the destruction became visible. Burned-out vehicles littered the route for kilometers. Tanks lay sideways in snowbanks. Trucks were reduced to twisted metal frames. Dozens of Russian soldiers had surrendered after running out of ammunition, warmth, and hope. What shocked Russian command wasn't simply the loss of the convoy. It was the realization that Ukraine had anticipated the storm and intentionally manipulated it. Russia had assumed that harsh weather would interrupt Ukrainian drone usage and slow down their coordination. Instead, Ukraine used thermal drones, winter, adapted strike teams, and PREP, land firing zones to exploit the environment. Russia had walked into a natural trap engineered by their opponent. This showed a level of strategy and adaptation that many military analysts didn't believe Ukraine possessed early in the war. Ukrainian forces also recovered valuable intelligence from the wreckage, including maps, tactical documents, encrypted devices, and supply manifests. This information revealed that the convoy was carrying ammunition meant for upcoming Russian offensives. By destroying it, Ukraine didn't just win a battle. They delayed Russian operations across multiple fronts. The effects rippled far beyond the blizzard zone. Russian units waiting for resupply found themselves stranded with limited ammunition. Commanders were forced to cancel planned attacks. Meanwhile, Ukrainian morale surged as the footage of the destroyed convoy circulated among troops. The global reaction added another layer to the event. Military experts around the world noted that Ukraine had demonstrated exceptional battlefield creativity. Using weather as a tactical advantage isn't new in military history. but executing a modern ambush in a blizzard using drones, artillery, and infantry coordination is a rare achievement. Analysts highlighted that Russia's reliance on predictable supply routes made them vulnerable. Convoys like this one were easy to track, especially when soldiers discussed movements over unsecured channels or followed rigid timetables. Ukraine exploited every one of those weaknesses. As Ukrainians assessed the battlefield, they carefully avoided staying too long in the open. Once the snow began to clear, they withdrew in phases, taking prisoners and salvaging equipment before Russian aircraft or reinforcements could arrive. The operation ended exactly as planned, fast, devastating, and complete. Russia arrived too late to help their soldiers or save their vehicles. The blizzard had covered most Ukrainian tracks, leaving Russian investigators with no clear idea of how the ambush had been coordinated. All they saw was destruction and silence. This single operation has now become a case study in asymmetric warfare. It proved that technology, timing, and environmental awareness can overcome numerical disadvantage. Ukraine didn't need more tanks than Russia. They didn't need more artillery or more manpower. They needed the right moment, the right place, and the right weather. And when all of those aligned, Ukraine struck with maximum efficiency. For Russian soldiers who survived, many reported feeling trapped in a nightmare, unable to see, unable to move, unable to fight. Even weeks after the event, Russian military bloggers expressed outrage at the planning failures that allowed such a disaster. Some claimed the convoy wasn't properly protected. Others blamed poor weather forecasting or outdated equipment. But regardless of internal debates, one truth remained. Ukrainian forces outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and outplayed Russia at every step. The destruction of the convoy wasn't just a tactical victory. It was a symbol of adaptability and intelligence in warfare. This blizzard ambush changed the perception of what Ukraine is capable of. It sent a message not only to Russia, but to the entire world. The smaller army isn't always the weaker one. The army that thinks, adapts, and uses every possible advantage, terrain, weather, technology, is the one that wins battles. As winter continues, Russia now fears that every snowstorm could hide another trap, another ambush, another devastating strike waiting to unfold. The story of this convoy is more than just a dramatic battlefield moment. It's a reminder that war is not only fought with weapons, but with strategy, timing, and understanding of nature. Ukraine turned a blizzard into a weapon and forced Russia to face a simple but painful truth. Sometimes the deadliest enemy is the one you never saw coming until it was too late.